since the sixth grade.
Billy Waller said something about me, and so, anyway, we started being sweethearts and stayed that way all through high school. Rode the school bus together, and just, and we graduated in separate years, so we just kind of went our separate ways, and I married somebody else. My husband had just come back from the war. And Billy married somebody else then, and we hadn't seen each other in 65 years.
No kidding.
Well, I left Eatonton, and as soon as I and I never really lived here. I visited family, but I never
Makes
lived
us
here.
so mad.
So anyway, we ran into one another, and I was with Larry, and he had seen Larry all through the years because Larry lived here and Billy lived here.
Larry
too.
Manley, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I was with Larry, and he spoke to Larry. Hey, Larry, how you doing? And said, hey, how you? And he turned back around and he said, Mother Joe. I said, yeah. What, my goodness, I got to have a 50-year hug.
I grabbed it and I said, give me one of them 50-year hugs.
As loud as he could say it, and everybody just kind of.
And I laid one on her too.
Anyway,
I didn't, excuse my language, give a damn what anybody thought.
we hadn't laid eyes on one another all that time. Now, if we had, we didn't recognize one another. Well, I hadn't been living here. I lived in Valdosta and Macon. So, anyway, he called me then after that.
That's after my wife had died, and
Now, how long ago was that?
8 years ago, I believe. No, it was 2013, wasn't it?
we married in
And we
August
married
of
the next
2013.
year. And we've been married since then.
So from the day you ran into her till y'all got married, how long did y'all date again?
14 months.
14 months.
And I came up here one day, I told her then, I said, I'm going to call you. I want to go through the school. I'd heard so much about it, and I hadn't been there. And some people had told me that she was on the committee. And I said, I want you to take me through it. And I said, well, yeah, I'll do it. And so later on I called her, and I said, I'm going to come up there. So I came up in Bella. I think I went to your house.
We went there, and finally he said, well, it's
4 o'clock.
No, it was noon. And he said, it's it's lunchtime, you want to go get some lunch? And I thought, you know how people in small towns talk. And I hadn't been out with anybody except my husband in all these years. And I thought, I said, well, yeah, why don't we ride up to Madison and eat? So we did. And
another thing too.
And Patrona would have had it in the Pea Ridge News.
Oh, it would have been in the Patrona would have been so happy though.
Baby.
She would have been so happy.
I came up here to get her. Right there in the kitchen. Come on in the house. I was standing at the end of that counter, and she was standing on the other side. And she says, I believe I need a hug. I said, I can do better than that. I turned around and backed her up against that counter, and I laid another one on. And I looked back and I thought to myself, it's back. It's back. And we went from there.
That's wonderful.
That's so neat. Who married you?
The preacher.
The Presbyterian church. I went to Presbyterian church. Mm-hmm. Where she went to go to church.
We just had a family, just my children, his children, and my
just small.
Spouse, brothers and sisters.
And then we had a reception later on.
Yeah, we rented the old plaza thing up there and had to invite Billy's friends from Millersville. He had a whole coffee club and all these people down there that he wanted. We didn't want to have a big wedding. We just had a very small room. But anyway, it's been, I think 8 years, has it been? This year be 8 years? Mm-hmm.
Well, Kathy told me that she came back to Georgia to take care of her mama, but before she could get here, Mr. Billy had already
I'm trying to take care of my mama.
That's about the truth. That she was in Georgia, but she was in Atlanta. She wasn't.
Okay, we're back to Eden.
I had a good friend in Milledgeville, I don't know whether you've ever heard of Bill Millines. He was the head of the forestry department for this district. His wife had passed away about the time mine did, and some time had passed, and he was seeing another lady, and they were giving Bill a hard time. I said, Bill, let me tell you what my philosophy is on that. Bill was my friend. He said, what? I said, don't pay a damn bit of attention what people are saying. As long as you and God are happy, that's all that matters. As long as you're in good standing with him. And he looked at me and like funny and he said, well, I agree with you. Well, she passed away pretty soon after that. And, but anyway,
Well, Kathy has to take care of both of us now, though,
I just
instead of just me.
this time was gonna count. That's the way I felt about it. I went back and I told my son, I went out to his office, he was a doctor there. I went over there one morning and I said, I can talk to you a minute. He said, I said, I'm seeing somebody and I told you I'd let you know what I was doing. And he said, yeah. And he looked at me and said, is that Larry Manley's sister? And I just sort of turned and looked around. I said, well, yeah. How did you know? He said, well, I've got patients in Edenton. I said, well, that's her. And I said,
He said, well, I already knew that.
I really knew all about that.
You already made it to him.
Patrona went to, a lot of people at Eaton went to him. He
Oh,
said,
Patrona
"Well,
went to him as a patient. Oh, God, if she had been living and known that.
She called him that little like
would have been
Wallace.
in that paper.
You better believe it.
She called him that little like Wallace. She acknowledged that he was grown enough to be a doctor, you know. Well, that little like Wallace, he said so and so and so and so.
She tell
She
people
knew
I'm
him when
going
he
to that
was
little
a
like wall.
little boy.
Oh, goodness.
See what
Well, when
left.
we were